Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Sure can. Good morning.
Morning. The Rulemaking Advisory Committee will begin in a few minutes. Um, if you're here and are testifying today, please just let us know in the chat. I'll remind people as they enter. Thank you. Thanks, Robert. Tell your message. Thank you, Jed. Hope you're doing well. Haven't seen you in a minute. I'll give it a couple more minutes to see if anyone else filed, and I think we have a couple of people that we were expecting today. For those joining, welcome. We'll be starting shortly. If you are here to speak or testify today, you can please indicate so in the chat. And I'll start this rulemaking in a couple of minutes because I see people are still filtering in. Thank you. Okay, I think I'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. My name is Pierre Sabat. I'm a policy analyst for the Building Codes Division, and I'm the facilitator for today's Rulemaking Advisory Committee. This is a remote hearing being held virtually over Zoom. This Rulemaking Advisory Committee is being recorded to maintain a permanent record. Today's date is Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. The time is approximately 9:32 a.m. The purpose of today's Rulemaking Advisory Committee is to assist the Building Codes Division, or the Division, in adopting the 2025 Oregon Commercial Reach Code, which is a set of statewide optional construction standards and methods designed to increase the energy efficiency of structures regulated by the Oregon Energy Efficiency Specialty Code, or known as the OEESC. For today's agenda, I will begin with a short introduction on the background of the Reach Code adoption. After the introduction, we'll jump into code proposals, beginning with the BCD's code proposal. We will then move on to our public code proposals. Potential financial and economic impacts and potential race equity impacts will be discussed too. Any additional topics and next steps will be discussed at the end of the meeting. Okay, to give everyone in the meeting some background on the rulemaking process, I'll begin with Executive Order 2004. In 2020, Oregon's governor issued Executive Order 2004, which directs state agencies to take actions to reduce and regulate greenhouse gas emissions. EO 2004 has specific requirements for the division. It requires the division to, through its advisory boards, evaluate and report on Oregon's current progress towards achieving the goals for new residential and commercial buildings and options for achieving that goal over the next 3 code cycles, and then submit a report on the current progress for every 3 years after. Additionally, it requires the division, through its advisory boards, to adopt building energy efficiency goals for 2030 for new residential and commercial construction, representing a 60% reduction in new building annual site consumption of energy from the adopted Oregon codes. Lastly, it requires the division, through the advisory boards, to evaluate and report on Oregon's current progress towards achieving the goals for the new residential and commercial buildings and options for achieving that goal over the next 3 code cycles, and then submit a report on the current progress. I'll move on to ORS 455-500. ORS 455-500 requires the division, in consultation with the appropriate advisory boards, to adopt, amend, and administer a code separate from the state building code, known as the REACH code. The REACH code is a statewide of optional construction standards and methods that are economically and technically feasible, including any published generally accepted codes and standards newly developed for construction or for the installation of products, equipment, devices that are designed to increase energy efficiency in buildings that are newly constructed, reconstructed, altered, or repaired. Technical review shall consider changes necessary to address federal, state, and local financial incentives. The commercial reach code is a statewide optional above code pathway for builders, consumers, contractors, and others to use for the design and construction of structures regulated by the OEESC. Local municipalities must allow for the use of the commercial reach code. Lastly, House Bill 3409 and OAR 918-465-0040. In accordance with House Bill 3409, which was passed in the 2023 Oregon legislative session, the reach code, which includes our commercial reach code, must be adopted by rule with the appropriate approval of the appropriate advisory boards each time the applicable base code is updated. The division, in consultation with the approval of the boards, amended OAR 918-465-0040, satisfying HB 3409's requirement that the reach code must be adopted by rule. The update to OAR 918-465-0040 went into effect on Jan 1, 2024. The base code for this commercial reach code is the OEESC, and the division established that through rule that once a new version of the OEESC is forwarded to the administrator by the appropriate board, the process for updating the commercial reach code begins. Our 2025 OEESC became effective on January 1st, 2025. The commercial reach code adoption process began a little bit earlier with a public amendment proposal period that went from October 18th, 2024 through December 15th, 2024. That concludes my general background for this morning. I'll pass it off to our Chief Mark Heizer for any additional comments he may have, and then we will get into the BCD proposal. Thank you for joining, everybody. Good morning.
Thank you, Pierre. For the record, Mark Heizer with Building Codes Division. Just a general introduction as we get into the draft from the division for the 2025 Oregon Commercial Reach Code. We began with the current 2022 version, did do some modifications and some pieces that we will update a little bit more, looking at replicating some of what was done for the residential reach code, doing more investigation of two methods that also aligned with incentives, trying to see where we could bring those items in to encourage actual use of the commercial reach code as well, and looking at when aligned with incentive programs, it provides for an uptick in actual use of the code. There will be some further modifications to a few pieces that we'll explain when we get into the document itself. But moving forward, would like to just note that, yes, this is a starting point of the current code updated, the current reach code updated with new references to the current energy code, to other programs that are out there, to with really updating the reference standards that are noted therein. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Pierre for the next phase. And a big note that we are having some construction in the office. So if you hear a lot of background noise when either Pierre or myself are online, carpet is being replaced and furniture is being moved around. So please bear with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And yeah, to note, if anyone hears anything in the background, as Mark said, we are in the office and there's some active construction going around, so I apologize. We will move into our first discussion, which is the BCD's draft of the 2025 Oregon Commercial Reach Code, which I'll pass back to Mark.
Thank you very much. Are we going to be able to, I guess, bring up the draft document to show on the screen just to go through?
Yep. Can you see it, Mark?
Yes, can
Okay,
now
great.
see it. I hope everyone else can. So
Great.
scrolling down, in going through, looking at the previous version, also looking at some prior proposals that had come in to look at integrating, yes, updates to residential. One of the big points is bringing in that our occupancy buildings, if multifamily, will be done in compliance with the Energy Star Multifamily New Construction Program, version 1.2, revision 4. We do have to do a little bit of alignment. We brought in a bit of the language from the residential version. We have to verify a few pieces about making sure we have proper references to the raters that would be required to get the 45L incentive figures, and also under the exception for state you'll see under CR 1301.2 scope, that language had said that our occupancy buildings 5 stories and fewer were exempted. We would make this available, the multifamily dwelling for our occupancy buildings of any height. So we would be scratching the 5 stories and fewer section there in the future. That's what part of the consideration that we're going to be looking at today to further expand the application to multifamily buildings. And also the different appendix, of course, the ECB and appendix methodologies, as well as the data center methodology, are the current items in the proposal to modify the 2022 Oregon Commercial Reach Code to the 2025 version, of course, using the current OESC, which is based on ASHRAE Standard 90.1 2022. So at this point, I believe we're going to look and see if there are any questions for the division or feedback. We can begin initial comments about the base starting point for the 2025 Reach Code. And I'm assuming we'll look for hands being raised, correct? Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, we can mark if you have anything else, or I can keep it moving.
With that, Pierre, if there are no comments for the division, we can move forward. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. We'll move on to our topics for discussion. Topic 1 is feedback and discussion on proposals for commercial reach code. I know we do have some public proposals. If we can go in order, if those people are here to speak today. So the first one would be 25 OCRC 01, which is Kevin Rose with Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, NEEA. So if Kevin, you are here and you want to speak on your proposal.
Sure. This is Kevin Rose with the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, or NEEA for short. I'll provide just a little bit of context for my proposal. I think most know, but ASHRAE Standard 90.1 is the basis of the OESC. So I think it makes logical sense for any situations where the OESC makes amendments that reduce energy savings with respect to 90.1. I think it makes sense for the reach code to at least, get back to that starting level, so to speak, of 90.1. And that's sort of the crux of what my proposal seeks to do, is to set the standard for reach code, the sort of foundational standard for the reach code to be full compliance and energy savings realization of the corresponding 90.1 version, which in this case is 90.1 2022. From a code writing perspective, my attempt to do this was to target specific amendments made in the OESC that reduce the energy savings with respect to 90.1, and to essentially reverse them. But I'm open to other code language approaches that achieve that same goal of, starting reach code projects at a foundation of achievement of 90.1 2022 without those weakening amendments.
Great, thank you, Kevin. If anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to chime in or raise your hand and I can make sure I see it. Yes, Jim, please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, this is Jim Edelson representing New Buildings Institute. which is headquartered in Portland, but we do mostly national and out-of-state work. Code work. And New Buildings Institute was responsible for the first introduction of renewable energy into a national model code, which happened in the 2012 IECC. MBI, had proposed, and it was adopted to include renewable energy as one of three section with, or no, it's three Section 406 options, and at that point it was a novel idea, but it did become, of course, solar has come down and other renewable energy has come down in price for on-site applications, and over time it has become more widely adopted as options. And then ASHRAE 90.1 in 2022 created the section 10 or 11 that require renewable energy at 0.5 watts per square foot. It was quickly realized, and I was a member of the renewable working group that assisted 90.1, that renewable energy is an essential component of new commercial building construction. And as part of the basic requirements. And 90.1 has proceeded to increase that requirement in 2025 to 0.75 watts per square foot. So not only was it introduced, accepted, and now it is going to increase. And of course, that will become necessary to achieve any type of zero emission goals that are in the 90.1 work plan. And it seems absurd that Oregon has removed this from their base requirements, and that this removal is reinforced by a REACH code, which maintains that removal of an essential requirement of 90.1. So MBI fully supports the NEA proposal and hopes the RAC and then the rulemaking adopts the NEA proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I see Robert's hand up.
Hi, thank you. I'm Robert, and representing OSSIA in support of Kevin Rose's proposal. We view those 4% energy savings as essential for Oregon's 2030 code efficiency targets. And note that the 90.1 does have written in it that the considerations for their proposals were considering things anticipated by the Pacific Northwest National Laboratories, expectations of what could be found in the area for weather and those things, and does have many different individual packets for builders to choose from to match their needs, which addresses what we understand as the concern for why it was rejected, which was that it couldn't be applied equitably. So we do request that the Building Codes Division consider adopting this proposal.
Thank you, Robert. Any other comments or discussion?
If anyone would like to hear additional reasons why under the mandatory code it cannot be there and it was not adopted by the state of Oregon, we'd be happy to provide additional information on that if necessary. And it does have a lot to do with not only our statutory authority, but also the cost-effective scaler that was used to pass 90.1 2022. There is, if you can carefully look at the application of 90.1 2022, if you cannot apply solar, there is a reduction in required number of points. And that is due to the fact that there was not that the cost-effective scalar path required the use of optional solar in order to meet the scalar requirements and not violate preemption. And as a state that is underneath the Ninth Circuit Court jurisdiction and their ruling, we would not be able to apply mandates for, well, we would have to have a cost-effective path as part of our use that would not violate the preemption requirement. So that is part of the reasoning behind this, is to avoid issues with lawsuits, but also within our statutory authority for requiring the installation of solar statewide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay. Seeing no other discussion on this proposal, we can move on to our second proposal, which is being presented by Jed Scheuermann with IAPMO. So Jed, if you would like to speak on this proposal, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jed Scheuermann. I'm with the IAPMO group. Thanks for this opportunity here today. My code change proposal was to update the Oregon Commercial Reach Code to include the 2020 edition of the Water Efficiency Standard for the built environment known as WESTAND. Presently, the Reach Code has our previous edition of WESTAND incorporated. The residential Reach Code updated to the 2020 WESTAND earlier in their process last year, and I'm proposing to harmonize and keep in sync the commercial Reach Code with the residential Reach Code with this 2020 edition of WESTAND. I did provide one example of some of the types of savings that could actually be realized when using the water demand calculator. Typically, the SDC charges involved in water meters can be reduced substantially because of the allowance for smaller pipe sizes and smaller meters, which reduces the cost of construction. Furthermore, I think everyone is probably well aware of the realities of waterborne diseases such as Legionella. My news feeds almost every day notice new cases of Legionella coming up, and that a lot of that is directed toward water pipe sizing, oversizing, water age, and things like that, which is another thing that WESTAND can deal with. In the process of this, I've reached out to a very broad industry looking for support and have secured the support of the Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling Contractors, the PHCC of Oregon, UA Local 290 Plumbers and Steam Fitters, Recode Oregon, and I note that Pat Lando, who is involved with Recode Oregon, sits on several WESTAND committees and task forces, the Mechanical Contractors Association of Oregon, Earth Advantage, and I believe Dave Heslem is here today in this meeting, and Zero Coalition. I've seen a couple of the fellows, Alex, for example, here from Zero Coalition. So this proposal has broad industry support across the pipe trades as well as the construction industry, and interests that are involved in reducing greenhouse gases and dealing with climate change. So that is the essence of my proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Jed. Any discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, we can move on to our third proposal. Our
Thank
third
you.
proposal comes from, thank you, Jed. Our third proposal comes from Alex Boetzel with Zero Coalition.
Yeah, good morning. Alex Boetzel with Earth Advantage and representing the Zero Coalition. Our proposal focuses on the adoption of Appendix M, also known as Addendum L, if I'm remembering this right, as an alternative compliance path within the Commercial Reach Code, aiming to write like a clear and performance-driven zero emissions pathway for commercial buildings. So this approach aligns with Oregon's statutory requirements under ORS 455-500, House Bill 3409, and EA 2004 by combining energy efficiency improvements with renewable energy offsets to support statewide emission reduction targets. Appendix M offers a 10 to 12% improvement over 90.1 22 baseline, and introduce like a balanced strategy integrating both energy efficiency measures and renewable energy to achieve zero emissions. There will be some support probably required from Pacific Northwest Laboratory to align building performance factors, but I think if BCD is so inclined and request that, I think that's feasible. And so this would make a good approach for future code developments as well.
Thank you, Alex. Is there any questions or discussion? Yes, Jim.
Thank you, Pierre. New Buildings Institute fully supports this zero proposal. We believe that it is a proposal that also aligns with many of the federal directions that were approved by Congress and signed by the president in the Inflation Reduction Act. This is a proposal that was widely vetted over an 18-month period through the ASHRAE process. Not the full ANSI process, but it was vetted through the ASHRAE 90.1 committee. We believe it is technically sound. We believe as Alex said, it meets the objectives of statutory and regulatory requirements and the executive orders. So we think this is a positive step forward. It provides another option for those projects in Oregon that want to achieve a zero emissions level of performance. We urge you the adoption of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any other discussion?
Just Mark Heizer with the division asking, I saw that your committee has, that looked at this, had a member from Energy Trust of Oregon. Were there any discussions of potential other incentives that might be able to come with this particular path?
We did discuss it a little bit, and we're unfortunately we're not able to identify any additional incentives, but it likely will provide broader availability of incentives. But so far no additional incentives that we were aware of.
Hey.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to our fourth proposal, which is from Kevin Duell with Northwest Natural.
Okay, I might be clear now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Kevin.
Thank you. Yeah, so in brief, this proposal is attempting to, or excuse me, this is Kevin Duell with Northwest Natural for the record. And this proposal is attempting to bring in some new aspects of 90.1, specifically the points table or the credits table. So similarly to some of the residential credits tables, there's a new commercial table, and the point values are well, we're in discussion with Mark about how to dial this in. But the notion is the current REACH code essentially requires some form of modeling to show the 10% better goal, and this would allow another pathway, a prescriptive pathway for a commercial building, which would be particularly handy for smaller occupancies or smaller scale buildings and some occupancies that are probably unlikely to do modeling, retail, for example. And so it would allow the REACH code to reach more projects. That's it in brief. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions or discussion? Yeah. Seeing none, we can move forward. I will close the discussions on the public proposals for now, and move on to topic 2, which is potential fiscal and economic impacts. With any rulemaking, the division is required to make particular note of the potential fiscal and economic impacts that might result from new rules or modified rules. The division is requesting input from the committee on the nature and extent of any fiscal or economic impact that may be caused by this rule. Examples would be, is there additional cost on local municipalities or savings? Are there any cost or requirements for, particular types of businesses? Will there require any additional training or stuff to comply with or enforce? Or will it make stuff more or less expensive? That's just some examples. So any thoughts on fiscal and economic impact that go beyond are welcome. Obviously, we have the BCD proposal and 4 other proposals. So there's potential fiscal and economic impact that could stem from any of them. So if you'd want to speak on any of them, feel free, whether it's someone, a member, or one of the speakers that spoke on one of their proposals, they would like to chime in on their proposals, feel free. So yeah, if any members of the committee have any thoughts on possible fiscal or economic impacts of any of the proposals, please feel free. Thank you. Okay, if there is no discussion, I can move on. Topic number 3 is, what are the potential impacts on racial equity in the state? With any rulemaking, the division is required to make particular note on any potential impact on racial equity in the state that might result from the rules. Division will welcome any input from the committee on the nature and extent of any impact this rule may have on racial equity in Oregon. If you would like to speak on that, please feel free. Okay, hearing and seeing none, we'll move on. This is time for any additional topics to discuss. So this is an opportunity for anyone here today in the committee to discuss any additional issues that we have not previously brought up. It's also an opportunity to return to any previous issues or proposals that were discussed earlier, but where additional discussion may be beneficial. So if there's anything else anyone would like to say today, please feel free. This is the time. Yes, Kevin. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This is Kevin Duell, Northwest Natural. Just wanted to thank the division for advancing the code and managing this process. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Yes, Dave.
Hi, thank you guys so much for putting this meeting on today. Really appreciate it. And I was interested in Jim's comment in the comment section on if it would be possible for the BCD to provide the written documentation on why section 10.5.1 of ASHRAE is deleted from the OEESC, and further how that would be applied to the NIA proposal.
Mark, do you have any comments on that?
Sorry about the delay on meeting. I believe we can get the basics on that and can provide how it would be well, as part of this, we would look at, yes, how it would be applied to any of the proposals. So on when it comes to renewables and in code, since this is an optional code, there's a little more leeway on things versus in the mandatory statutory code.
Awesome.
That's adopted by rule that's required to be applied statewide.
Thank you.
Kevin, is your hand still up?
Oh, no, sorry.
Robert, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. And thank you for this meeting. Mark, I
Yeah.
think that you might have just spoken to this, but I was essentially just going to also ask, I think that when you were citing jurisdictional issues that you mentioned that you would be able to provide more information about why or how this is applying. I just also would like to request seeing that.
We can respond relative to the to application to the REACH code and when it's optional and how that might be applied there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I see Jim's hand up.
Yep.
It looks like again, or is he?
Yeah, Jim from
Hi,
New
Jim.
Buildings. Yeah, from New Buildings Institute. Yeah, sorry to harp on this to BCD, but it the way you responded to the proposal relied heavily on the decision to remove section 10.5.1 from the OESC. So I do think that it would be useful to answer in this rulemaking why it was also removed from the OESC. That is of course the reason why NIA is proposing to add it back. So I do think the rationales for both of those would be warranted to understand this rulemaking. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll have relative to this rulemaking, you can look at the adoption process for the OESC, and we can note that again during the adoption of the next OESC.
Okay, yeah. If you could point us to, if there's relevant documentation for the base code adoption, that would be helpful too. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. I will give committee an overview on next steps, and then we can conclude. The division anticipates the following per the 2025 REACH code. In February, we will bring the proposed provisions to the REACH code to the Construction Industry Energy Board to make the final recommendation for adoption. In March, sometime, we will hold a public rulemaking hearing where interested parties can provide final testimony about the proposed code provisions. And then our anticipated effective date is April 1, 2025. The 2025 Oregon Commercial REACH code will be available for use and posted on the division's website. And Laura provided the link to the OESC adoption page in the chat, which will take you to the timeline and all of that. If there's nothing else, that will conclude today's Rulemaking Advisory Committee on the 2025 Oregon Commercial REACH code. The current time is 10:10 a.m. Thank you everyone for participating today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you.